most scary stories build slowly. These don't, because in each of these stories, the people involved realized something was wrong. Way too late. A man followed to a motel and watched all night. A girl tracked down by someone she barely knew. And a solo camper who wasn't alone, even when he thought he was. And the last story still doesn't fully make sense. Story 1. The Motel. It started in a small town in northern Pennsylvania, the kind of place where everything shuts down early, and the streets feel empty long before midnight. He was only supposed to stay 3 nights for work, just fixing freezers at a local supermarket. Nothing unusual. Until he checked into the motel. The woman at the front desk seemed friendly, but distracted. While handing him the key, she said something that didn't sit right. If anyone knocks on your door at night, don't answer it unless it's me or the owner. And if you hear anything outside, call the office. Don't get involved. She said it casually, like it was normal. He brushed it off. At least, at first. Later that night, he noticed a dark green pickup truck parked nearby. Engine running, lights off. And the man inside didn't move, didn't look at him, didn't react at all, just sat there. Still, around 10:30, the footsteps started, slow, deliberate. Right outside his door, they stopped. No knock, no avaz, just silence. Then they walked away. A minute later, they came back, stopped again. Still nothing. That's when it started to feel wrong. At 11 o'clock, the first knock came. Soft, controlled. He checked the peepholes, no one there. The walkway was completely empty. That's when the unease turned into something heavier, something real. Around midnight, he heard it. A faint metallic scraping. Right near the door. He stepped closer, slowly, and looked through the peephole again. This time he saw someone. Crouched low, just barely visible. A dark cap, one shoulder, watching, waiting. Then suddenly, they stood up and walked away fast. He called the office immediately. At first, they sounded annoyed. Then quiet. Too quiet. They told him to stay inside. Said someone would check. But when they called back, they claimed no one was there. Just someone messing around. He barely slept. And at 5:15 in the morning, things got worse. His truck alarm went off. He looked outside. A man was standing at his driver's door, opening it, then, without warning, the man turned and looked directly at his room, like he knew, like he felt eyes on him. Then he walked away. Police came. They checked everything. Nothing stolen. But something didn't feel right. One officer warned him quietly, if anything happens again, don't open the door and leave as soon as you can. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Because the next night, the truck came back. Same one, same darkness, same silence. Then came the tapping. Not on the door, on the window. Soft at first, then again. Closer. Then something dragged slowly down the glass, a fingernail, or something worse. He stayed frozen, pretending to sleep, because he knew, whoever was out there, knew he was inside. Then came a new sound. The room next to his, opening. But it was supposed to be empty. He heard movement, careful, quiet, like someone trying not to be heard. Then a loud hit against the wall, testing it, measuring it. He called 911, whispering, trying not to breathe too loud. And then, the bathroom window started to open, slowly, from the outside. He ran and slammed it shut. Something pushed back, just once, from the other side. Then footsteps outside his door again. More than one this time. Soft knocks, waiting. When the police finally arrived, whoever was there ran. Multiple footsteps, not one person, several. Outside they found the window screen removed, pry marks on his truck, and signs someone had entered the empty room next door. But the worst part came after. An officer told him quietly. This had happened before. Other men, same motel, followed, watched, targeted. When he packed to leave, he found something under the bed, a piece of paper with his room number, his license plate, written down. They didn't choose him that night. They chose him long before he ever noticed. The stalker. It started like nothing. Just a match on Tinder, a normal conversation, at first. Then things changed. He became possessive, fast, saying things like, "You're mine. If I can't have you, no one can." At first she thought he was joking, until she realized he wasn't. Eventually he disappeared, blocked her, gone, and she moved on, or at least she thought she did. Weeks later, he came back, acting normal, almost sweet, talking about her smile, like nothing had happened. She played along, not because she wanted to, but because she was afraid of what would happen if she didn't. Then one night, everything changed. She got dropped off near her house, walking alone, quiet street, dark alley. And then someone said her name. She turned and saw him. Before she could react, he grabbed her, slammed her against the wall, demanding answers. Who were you with? Why were you out? His grip tightened around her throat, harder and harder. She couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't fight back. For a moment, she thought it was over. Then, suddenly, he stopped, let go, said he had to leave, and ran. Just like that, she survived. Barely. The next day, police confirmed what she feared. He wasn't just obsessed, he was dangerous, and he wasn't done. Days later, she was followed again. Not by him, but by someone connected to him. Now she lives with it, that feeling, that constant fear that he's still out there, watching, waiting. And one day, she might not see him coming. He just wanted peace. A quiet solo camping trip in the mountains. No people, no noise, just nature. On the way there, a man at a diner told him something strange. Be careful out there. It gets real quiet at night. He didn't think much of it until later. That evening, as the fire burned low, he heard footsteps, not animals, human. Then he saw him, a man, standing between the trees, watching. They spoke briefly, but something felt off. When asked if he was alone, he lied, said friends were coming. The man left, but not completely, because before disappearing, he turned back and stood there, watching again. That's when the fear started. Later that night, the footsteps returned. Closer this time, circling the tent, slow, deliberate. Then they stopped, right outside. Silence. Then a breath, right outside the fabric. He didn't move, didn't breathe, pretended to be asleep, but it didn't stop. The footsteps came back, again and again, all night, sometimes far, sometimes right next to him. And at some point, he realized something worse. It didn't sound like just one person anymore. When morning finally came, he ran, didn't pack properly, didn't look back. As he stepped out of the tent, he heard it clearly, multiple people. Running away, not one, several. He made it back to his car, safe. But later, he made a mistake. He went back. And when he reached his campsite, everything was gone. Tent, gear, supplies, all of it. No damage, no trace. Just empty ground. like he was never there. Except they were. A few years ago, I worked the night shift at a small gas station just outside my town. It wasn't in the middle of nowhere, but after midnight, the place felt completely isolated. The highway nearby went quiet, the lights hummed overhead, and sometimes I'd go 30 or 40 minutes without seeing a single car. The shift usually ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Most nights were boring. I'd stock shelves, wipe down counters, and watch security cameras to pass the time. Around 2:30 one morning, a car pulled into the parking lot. That wasn't unusual. What was strange was the way it parked. Instead of pulling up to the front of the store like everyone else, it stopped all the way at the far end of the lot, right next to the edge of the property, where the lights barely reached. I waited for someone to get out, but no one did. The engine stayed running. For the next 10 minutes, the car just sat there. Eventually, I figured maybe someone was making a phone call or checking directions, so I went back to stocking drinks in the cooler. But when I checked the cameras again a few minutes later, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The car had moved. Now it was parked directly in front of the building, and someone was standing outside it, just standing there, facing the store. I couldn't make out the person's face from the camera angle. The hood of their jacket was up, and the parking lot lights cast this long shadow across the pavement. At first I thought maybe they were about to come inside. But they didn't. They just stood there. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. They still hadn't moved. At that point, the whole thing started to feel really wrong. Most customers either come inside right away or drive off. Nobody just stands there silently staring at the building. So I walked to the front door and locked it. Technically, we weren't supposed to lock the doors while open, but something about the situation felt off. I went back to the security monitor and zoomed in on the camera facing the entrance. The person was still there, but now they were closer. I hadn't seen them move. They were just suddenly closer to the door. That's when they raised their hand and slowly started knocking on the glass. 3 slow knocks. The sound echoed through the empty store. I froze. They knocked again. I tried to act like I hadn't noticed, pretending to organize things behind the counter while watching them through the corner of my eye. Another knock. Then the person leaned forward and tried to look inside. I could see their face now, but they weren't looking at the counter. They were looking past it, toward the back hallway that led to the storage room. My heart started pounding. There was no way they should know anything about the layout back there. After about 30 seconds, the person stopped knocking. They just stood there again, completely still. Then suddenly they turned and walked back to their car. I felt a wave of relief watching them get in and start the engine. The car pulled out of the lot and disappeared down the highway. I thought that was the end of it. Until about 15 minutes later, I was in the back room grabbing a box of snacks when I heard the doorbell chime from the front of the store. Someone had come in. I walked back toward the counter expecting a normal customer, but the store was empty. No one was there. Then I noticed the front door. It was slightly open, which didn't make sense because I was sure I'd locked it earlier. And that's when I heard something behind me. A slow scraping sound coming from the storage hallway. I turned around and saw the door at the end of the hall slowly closing, like someone had just slipped through it. I didn't wait to investigate. I grabbed my phone, ran outside, and called my manager and the police. When officers arrived and searched the building, they found muddy footprints all over the back storage area. But whoever had been inside was already gone. To this day, I still don't know when they actually entered the store. But the officers said something that stuck with me. They believed the person outside earlier wasn't trying to get in. They were waiting for me to leave the counter so they could slip inside without being seen. This happened to me during my first year of college. I had just moved into a small apartment building near campus. It wasn't fancy, but it was cheap and close enough that I could walk to my classes. The building only had about 12 units, and most of the neighbors kept to themselves. For the first few weeks, everything was normal. Until one night around 11 p.m., when someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I figured maybe it was a neighbor. When I opened the door, a guy I'd never seen before was standing there. He looked confused. He asked if Ryan was home. I told him he must have the wrong apartment. He apologized and left. Pretty normal interaction, except the next night, it happened again. Same knock, same guy, same question. Is Ryan here? I told him again that Ryan didn't live there. This time he stared at me for a second like he didn't believe me. Then he said, "Weird. He told me this was the place," and walked away. At that point, I assumed maybe Ryan used to live in the apartment before me. But the next night, the guy came back. Same knock, same question. Now it was getting uncomfortable. I told him firmly that no one named Ryan lived there and that he should stop knocking on my door. He just nodded and left again. After that, I didn't see him for about a week. Then, one night around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound. Someone was trying my doorknob, slowly, back and forth, like they were testing to see if it was locked. My heart started racing. I stayed completely still in bed, listening. The knob stopped moving. For a few seconds there was silence. Then I heard a quiet voice outside the door. "Ryan." I didn't answer. After a minute, the footsteps walked away down the hallway. The next morning I checked the peephole camera I'd recently installed, and what I saw made my stomach drop. It was the same guy, but he hadn't just knocked that night. The footage showed him standing outside my door for almost 20 minutes, trying the knob, looking around the hallway, and whispering the name Ryan over and over. I showed the footage to the apartment manager. That's when things got even stranger. She told me something I didn't know. There actually used to be a tenant named Ryan who lived in my apartment the year before, but he had moved out suddenly. No explanation, just packed his things and disappeared. According to the manager, no one had heard from him since. The strange part? A few days after I showed her the footage, the guy who kept knocking on my door showed up again. But this time he wasn't asking for Ryan. He just stood there staring at me and said something I'll never forget. "You look a lot like him." Then he turned and walked down the hallway. I moved out of that apartment 2 months later. But even now, I still wonder something. If that guy really believed Ryan lived there, why did he stop asking for him? And how did he know what Ryan looked like? Some people say these are just coincidences. Wrong place, wrong time. But when you look closer, it feels like something else, something watching, waiting, choosing.